Hello, hello, and welcome to this edition of the Law Firm Blueprint. I'm one of your hosts, Jay Ruin. With me, as always, is my man, Seth Price, hanging out in the headquarters of Price Benowitz down in D.C. A quieter D.C. with all the layoffs going around down there. But Seth, I'm celebrating two things this week. Two
Two.
things. Two, the Yankees are crushing it. So that's a big thing.
Special. New
So I'm wearing
bats.
my
New bats.
new bats. Yeah, I'll tell you right now. The first thing my son said is, "Can I get a torpedo bat for baseball?"
Oh,
And I said, "Yeah, let's go look and see if we can get one."
yeah.
I mean,
But
they already have the double wall.
but can they please hold a few of the runs off for October? I mean, that was
Yeah.
game three with Fisher. It was brutal. Anyway, I digress. Okay, what's number two?
All right. Number two is today is the third anniversary of the creation of the Criminal Mastermind.
Wow,
I posted about it three years ago today. It came up in my memories on Facebook, and I said, you know what, I gotta say, I can't believe it. You know, I'm up to 50 active people. We're doing our first in-person events. We're getting more and more traction, and it's fun building a business from Jump Street, from brand new. You know, I've been doing the law thing for 27 years. So starting 3 years ago, I feel like I'm getting I'm getting my feet underneath me, and things are really going well. So that's what I'm celebrating. What's new with you?
let's see. I've had some good business travel, and then in about a week headed to Bahamar for my dad's 90th.
Oh,
And so Dad
wow.
is still practicing, still senior counsel to my firm, and really, really excited, very happy that we're able to celebrate all
I
together.
love Bahamar. I love Bahamar. That place is
Never,
great.
never
There's a
been.
nice little bar inside the Rosewood that you can have a drink at, or they have that rooftop. The kids will love the water park. I mean, it's a great place to go.
I'm really excited.
Well, something else you need to celebrate though. You got a post on LinkedIn with like over 200,000 engagements with it. I mean, that's like that. Those are not rookie numbers, my friend.
No, no,
So
they're not.
let's talk about it because obviously it's resonated with a lot of people. So recap it for us.
Well, so look, a couple weeks ago, a couple months ago, I decided to raise my LinkedIn game. Got a coach, focused on it. I see what other people like McKean have done a really nice job, and Tona and others. And I was telling more stories. They were great, getting 5 to 10,000. Occasionally, something might hit 20,000, 25,000 impressions. But it was sort of the story of what made me. A lot of stuff resonated as far as like separating operations from the practice of law, things like that. How we started the firm from Dave's basement. People like those stories. But a friend of the show, Jonathan Pollard, who's I call him Tony Robbins of LinkedIn. He, top 1, 2 most prolific guys on LinkedIn. He had posted something, and he works with like corporate non-competes. He's a very specific niche, and he had posted something along the lines of gaps on resumes shouldn't be a red flag or even a flag for that matter. And for somebody that has 300 employees across 2 businesses and is probably, hired in my lifetime triple that number, I took issue with that. I was like, I'm not saying it's a red flag, but if somebody has a gap on a resume, it's a flag. Like, what's going on? Is it
Hey, you
masking?
have to do 6 months for your fourth DUI,
No,
or were
right,
you taking
right,
care of
right.
a sick relative?
Or did you take off time to deal with a sick parent, or did you when you're raising kids, or whatever it may be? It's part of a conversation. And this is something that gets lost on LinkedIn because you put something, and it was really fascinating because for the first day, everything that came were my direct first connections, and they were pretty much very logical. I said basically, this is my thesis. It's a flag, not a red flag. You should ask questions. But is there, are they masking something? Are they independently wealthy? You don't really need to work. They might pop in and out. Yeah, it was all positive reinforcement. Second day was, all of a sudden, there's tens of thousands of people looking at this, and it was second degree people. And there, it was very much again reinforcing, saw my perspective, and it was overwhelmingly positive. By the third day, I'd hit the third degree of connection. So if somebody's not connected to you or me in this space, they're likely not a person we're close to, right? Meaning, like, we have a pretty large network. I was on LinkedIn first day. So by the third day, I was getting like, you're a terrible person. What if they were in jail and now you won't hire them? Or what if it was cancer? You shouldn't be asking about it. It's none of your business. You POS. I mean, it got heavy. And it was fascinating. I'd never sort of been on that side of it. I know, like, objectively, you put controversial stuff on LinkedIn and it's going to do well. But to me, I thought I was in a safe sandbox. I thought I was being very nuanced and, like, basically, I want to give you the opportunity. I'm not an AI bot rejecting a resume for a gap, but I think it's something that needs to be reflected on, because the piece that, as I got to the third degree, and it was generally employees looking at this, like, why can't I get hired? To me, it's not that I want to hire people. I need people. I want people that want to be with us and that will remain with us for a period of time. If I could guarantee that somebody's going to be with me for 2 years and be proficient, that's a home run. But somebody who's going to be with me for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, that's not a win. That's the cost in the transition is so much. So anything that I could do to sort of say, if the person likes what we're doing and we like them, that like dating, like we have a shot. If you go on, if you sort of date somebody with deal breakers that you know you'll never get engaged to, no matter what happens, that's a bad place. You could date for a little bit, it's fun, but they're never going to be with you longer term. And so to me, that gap is, everything I say, I'm sure as I'm listening to this, if this goes on LinkedIn, so it's like, how could you say it's like anything that I'm doing is looking at, is this person potentially going to be synergistic with what we're doing and like it, self-selecting. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's difficult. I think it does require a deeper conversation. I think it opens up, questions about if someone's job hopping. You see something on their resume, they're there for a year, then they're gone for 6 months, then they're in another job for 9 months. I mean, obviously that's a question as to whether or not they're going to fit in and stay. And we both have talked in prior episodes about the costs of simply bringing somebody in new, the training time, the time away from task for other people as they're training them, even if you have a dedicated trainer, which most firms in our audience don't. I think, and the cultural thing of turnover also is something that you need to consider. Because if people are leaving after 6 or 9 months, people, it, I don't want to say it's going to infect your culture of a sort of revolving door, but when other people don't stay, the people who do stay say, maybe this place isn't the greatest place to be, and
The
maybe there
cost,
are places I should be looking.
right?
And so I think it's something that you've got to consider.
No, you're right. Like there's so many different permutations. It's so hard to get nuanced in a short LinkedIn post, but exactly that, if somebody comes and they're not right for you for whatever reason, and you're able to figure that out ahead of time, the bad hire, not only is the cost of turnover, we have not one, but two trainers at the firm, two, right? So that's a lot of money. So not only, and that's, look, we're in growth mode, so that hopefully makes sense. Hopefully it's not turnover, but I think what you're saying is you want it to be good for all the people around as well as the
Right,
person there. Like we've had our flameouts, and I don't want that. The last thing I want to do is I want somebody to be successul. We're not doing this to,
right.
there were comments on the negative side from a lot of these third degree people, third degree removed, where it was talking about, you shouldn't be so controlling a toxic work environment. Like all I want is positive, is positive. And is everybody happy? No, we've had people left that aren't happy. But what I really would like is to give it the best possible chance for success.
I think the analogy, and I'll probably get flamed for saying this. It's sort of like when you bring the goldfish home from the pet store, and they're like, "Well, you got to put it in its own water right now first, and get it used to the water that you have before you dump it in the big fish bowl with everybody else." I wish there was sort of a way that you could do that, so you get people accustomed to the water in your firm before you unleash them on everybody, so that you
Like,
know that they're going to survive.
so, I'll tell you a story. So, I was at a conference a couple days ago, and I met somebody, and they had a former colleague of mine, somebody who had worked within Price Benowitz. It was a lawyer. And this lawyer, who was very good at his craft of litigation and going to court and getting verdicts, and I liked the guy interpersonally, was so toxic, touching other people at the firm, that it was a thing. I never, it was Mr. Snuffleupagus. He never displayed it to me, but long time, 10, 15-year employees and partners of mine looked at this and said, this guy can't be within the four walls of the firm. We ended up getting him a WeWork space, and he would come in every 2 weeks to bring his documents before COVID. So, but it allowed us to keep this guy for several years so that we were able to get the best of the litigation without infecting the people around us. I mean, and this guy, I think, had enough insight to know that he had issues, and he was doing some things that were not conducive to a work environment. And so
Right.
the irony was, I met his new employer, and there was sort of a sort of a smile. We both lived through it. They had no idea what we had done, that because they were everybody in the office, and they were having issues, and I'm like, no, no shit, Sherlock, you
Well,
know.
that that brings up a good piece of advice I got years ago from somebody in the HR press, and they said never talk to the place where the person is currently employed as a reference.
Because they may,
Go at least 1 year, because the people who you're talking to, if they're currently there, they may want to get rid of them and may gloss over or deliberately hide the bad stuff. But if you go to two or three people behind them, they'll give you the real
well,
skinny.
unless the person's unemployed, because one back can still even have liability on
Right.
unemployment. But it is fat. Look, in the course of the last weeks, other people I've met while on the road were looking at a candidate, somebody who had been with us years ago, who had embellished resume by multiple years. And it's sort of like when I see the pushback on LinkedIn, I feel for people. It's a very tough job market. DC, you alluded to at the beginning, it's crazy town. My friends in the government who have dedicated their lives and worked within organizations to protect the public, taken less money in order to do, really good, important work, are being thrown off a cliff professionally. They're just like goodbye. It is a really tough, brutal place. So I am not unsympathetic to the plight of somebody looking for a job. I just know that it is not for the faint of heart to put together a place, because if you allow people in by not asking what may seem like invasive questions to some, but to me is responsible, as you sort of alluded to before, if the cocktail that we have at work is not a conducive place that people want to be, you're going to have more issues, and people are going to be upset and not like their work environment. So in some places, as an employer, I sometimes feel you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Could you be
Yeah.
more invasive by some people's standards, asking questions to determine if somebody's a good fit? The comments that were made against me, but were the counter arguments, none of your business. But they're just like, can the person do the job? Yes or no. But we both know that there are people, and you've seen this, and I've seen this, who are amazing. I just alluded to one who are great at their job, but can't work and play well with others. And that
Right.
gap, to me, may be an opportunity to figure that out. And it's not like you're not going to hire somebody. We're desperate. We want good people. We need more people to make more money. So for me, I'm looking for a reason to hire. It is just that if I hire somebody and it's a misstep, it can be really, have significant negative connotations.
So I want to pivot a little now, and I want to ask you your position. And this is something that you could probably put up in LinkedIn and get another 250,000 responses. So we'll test it out, right? We'll see. We'll come back in a week or two, and we'll see how much this topic resonates. So this week we had two remote workers give us 0 days notice, zero. And one of them is remote and said, I got a job opportunity in my local government. It's a government job with a government pension, and I'm out of here because I can start tomorrow." And just up and left, zero notice, and obviously had been interviewing for this job and that type of thing. And then the other one was a remote person on the reception team who was working overnights in the Philippines, and just said, "Hey, listen, I want to get rid of. I want to work days. I don't want to work nights, and I have another opportunity, so I'm going to take it. I'm out as of tomorrow." And they decided to stay another week because they realized the job was not going to start, but and they're on reception, so that was okay with us. It was not that big of a deal. Um, but then that opens me up to the question for you: in staff roles, how much notice is appropriate?
We could.
In professionals, because you see a lot of these posts on LinkedIn saying they will fill your job, they will fire you and fill your job the very next day. You owe your employer nothing. And I mean, I've never fired anybody on the spot for no reason. I fired a few people on the spot for very, very good reasons. And I think when people post that on LinkedIn or on social media that, oh, just you have no allegiance to your job, it's kind of BS because, I'm trying to run a business here and I've been pretty damn good to a lot of people. And for these two people, I mean, granted, hey, I built in redundancies. It didn't impact us at all. We had already people in our interview pipeline. I mean, literally, like it was. I got a Slack message from my ops person. This person's leaving. I'm sliding somebody else in. We're good. So like it didn't crush me, but I could see if I were
You're
a
also
smaller firm.
you have look. We've also built out some redundancies.
Right.
One of my posts that did decently well is we had our integrator at BluShark, who was not in the sausage making, but was sort of like my right hand person. Gave 2 weeks notice at a role that I looked at as a partner.
Right.
This was a very, very well compensated person. Amazing, did incredible work. And the 2 weeks hurt. It hurt emotionally on one level because it's a friend leaving, and it hurt on a substantive level. And the thing I shared in the post was that this person was amazing, well beyond their years. BluShark would not be the place it was today. I think she correctly identified that we had outgrown her in certain ways, that I loved having her there. It was a security blanket, but that we needed to raise the game in certain areas. I'm convinced that she could have done it if she had wanted to, but she had not. Her rocks, of the very few, BluShark is well into the 80 or 90% on rocks completed per quarter. And one of the only things that was repeatedly not hit was scaling of her department. She was so good, so competent. She kept a lot of stuff to herself. So I think, look, it is. I have a post that I want to do on short tenure because I feel like that's analogous to the gap. But I think there's a much, much longer, maybe beyond LinkedIn discussion, which is, to a certain extent, I get it. If people are terminated with no severance, that's for no reason. And what is reason? Right? And that's a subjective piece. If you were to get rid of a person for whatever reason from the Philippines, what would you give as severance?
At least 2 weeks.
Right. And
At least.
is that a known thing?
You
And
know
if,
what? I don't think it is.
right.
I
And
don't
so
think it is.
like that's the quid pro quo, which is, look, again, it is,
That's a really good point.
right. And so that if people know that that's there, and it may be that you're not going to, because of the world that we live in, you don't always have somebody work out weeks. I once had an opportunity where somebody said, you know what, this isn't the right fit for you. And they said, hey, they weren't like, here's the door. They're like, yeah, wrap your stuff up and we'll move on.
Yeah.
And I've always done, again, another potential post. I prefer, if somebody is leaving and it's not for a reason that, and not for an awful reason, and the person isn't likely, which is subjective, and you're going to get burnt on this, going to burn the house down. I would rather let somebody stay on as a contractor so that they aren't being penalized with not having a job on the resume. That's the piece that is, and I don't want to be the guy, because you don't want to be misleading, as you talked about at the beginning, but I also, finding a job with a job is so much easier. And there are situations where it's not right for you, like dating, but it wouldn't be right for some, it would be right. So the dating world is better if you don't have somebody. But imagine in the dating world, if it would be better off to be seeing somebody to find somebody. Like so that's another potential. I'll have to transcribe this episode and find all my future LinkedIn posts. But these are the things that I struggle. So going back to your situation, I think it's, if people know that they're going to be taken care of, then they're more likely to give that notice. But it's also cultural. You're paying X amount. Was this through a service or directly to you?
They were direct hires.
And let me ask a blunt question. For the Philippines, were you overpaying because you were not through a service?
Yes.
So to me, I think some of it is starting to set those expectations, because we, truth be told, as I reflect, we've had several of the higher end people, people that you've given real opportunities to, who are international team members. And yeah, it's a thing where occasionally the person's just out. I think the world's starting to evolve where, as their references and as people look at their resume, all of a sudden the only reason you're going to get this, besides somebody thinking it's the right thing to do, will be if they're concerned that at some point when they go for a job, somebody goes to a JRO and says, "Yeah, they did a great job for me, but they gave me no notice." That's a real, I mean, using data, a real turnoff. I'm sure we'd get hate if we put this out on LinkedIn and it got to my third degree. But to me, that's the reason. And historically, the international people, it's sort of so far the Philippines. Who's ever going to talk to Jay Ruane? But at
Right.
some
But
point,
now,
if they're trying to step up a level and they're now going to a job with Capital One, and Capital One wants to know what they're dealing with. Now, the truth is, Capital One has such systems, and they probably don't care if somebody leaves with no notice. But you and I do.
yeah, it's just interesting. So I wonder if the people in the comments section can chime in. How much notice should somebody give? How much notice should a lawyer give if they're leaving your firm? Like they've decided to either hang a shingle or go someplace else. Because these lawyers, they have cases that are probably going to be advised. They can either stay or be transitioned. I mean, 2 weeks notice comes historically, as far as I know, from it took about 2 weeks to get somebody trained up in a factory to do the job without issue. So you could, grab somebody off of the applicant pool, stick them in front of a machine, and teach them how to press the right buttons or move whatever needs to be moved. But we're talking nuance. We're talking interpersonal relationship. Some people are talking sales or intake or whatever, and then there's the lawyers. What is the right amount of notice an employee should give their employer? And I get the employer can just turn around and fire you, but that's corporate people. That's not necessarily the small
And you
business
know
that
what?
we're doing.
And that
And
was
so,
the nuance that I was getting from the LinkedIn. These are people applying to massive corporations that are like gatekeep. And look, we're now gatekeep. We now have, international recruiters but it was really, it was it's taken a heavy toll. And I think the down economy with, people there again goes back to the gap and or the short tenure, which I want to talk about on a future post, really talks to, I think that it's very humbling looking for a job today, and that these are things that just own one more thing that's going to get in the way. But I'll stand by the fact that if you as an individual can solve somebody's problem, you'll always do well and you'll always make money. Yeah, that's easy to say, but that as that gets there, I agree with you. I feel like the more that there can be transparency, look, I wish that we could say to somebody, like that's another topic for a LinkedIn post, PIPs. Should there be PIPs? Or by the time you get to a PIP, are you basically saying go look for another job? What percentage
I
of
mean,
PIP?
I've never had a PIP work out.
Well, okay, so we've had a few, but should there be different branding? Because the moment you say PIP, you're saying, hey, go find
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Why even bother? Because now you're giving them the heads up. Now, it may be a positive where it gives them the heads up to move on, but should it be a PIP, or is PIP now a toxic term and we should just do something where here's a stay interview and we want you to, or whatever word you're going to use, but is there something you can do to try to motivate and get somebody? And we had a big thing at our L10 a couple weeks ago, which is, frustrated that we have not had that. And I think there are nuances to everything. We're probably not doing it as best we can. Or there are times when the ship has sailed and you're kidding yourself with the PIP, because is the PIP there for the employment lawyer perspective to protect you? Or is it there because you really want somebody to stay?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I feel like it's for the employment lawyer perspective.
Right. And I think
Because I mean, I think if you're at the pit point, there have been a lot of conversations among leadership, probably among coworkers, about how somebody's just not doing the job, and keeping somebody who's not doing the job can hurt morale so much more than removing somebody that's on the pit.
I agree. And I feel that we really should focus on how do we have communication throughout the employment. So the PIP is like, because let's assume you're in an at-will state. Like, I don't want the PIP to cover my ass. That was sort of the one of the comments I got was from an employment lawyer saying, God help you, you ask questions and the person comes back with some sort of serious medical condition, and now if you don't hire them, you have liability. I'm like, yeah, I got risk every time I get out of bed in the morning. I get it.
Right.
I will take that risk knowing I could get sued for a lot of money for not hiring somebody after asking a question, but I want that data because I want the person to be there to succeed. Like there's this negativity of like, oh, all we're looking for is somebody who's going to come in and be happy. That's part of it.
Right.
If
Stay happy, do your job. I'm happy with that.
Meaning if the gap is there because they left a company that burnt them out, and we know that we're a similar environment, isn't that information you'd like to be? Because on my lawyer side, I don't know if you have that conversation with a lot of people. I tell lawyers during interviews, I can tell from their resume and a few questions, they can do the job. Do they want it? It's a self-selecting opportunity very often. And so to me, if you're able to weed out people who have like that was the point from the comments was, you should hire somebody on their skills. But I'm like, that's just half the equation as a business owner. It's do they have the skills and are they going to fit into this team, both from the team's point of view and from their point of view? Because if you can ask questions and find out that this is not a great fit, given what you know, or statistically very unlikely, why even go there? Why? Because there's also a cost to the person. It's demoralized to come into a place and not work out.
Right.
So I'm anyway. Gears are spinning. I know that I'll be able to report back. But next week, I definitely want to be able to talk to you. I've been giving a lot of thought to what's going on with AI and with local search. And is local search something I've been very passionate about for a long time? I know you've helped build your firm that way as I have. Is that sort of the ability to stave off AI from a search perspective, and that are we seeing that while AI is pulling traffic, that Google is protecting its 3-pack, its Google Business Profile, it still wants to have that interface because it is sort of proprietary, and is that protected space for the foreseeable future?
I think, we are just, what are we, like 18 months into the AI revolution?
Too much for today. I just want to preview it for our next conversation.
Yeah, it's just, and I'll think on it too, because I think it's an important conversation. I'm using AI tools every day. I just talked to a developer. We have something that we think is going to be rather unique in the criminal defense space that we're going to be able to put out. We've over the last couple of years, we've really refined this whole process of creating a client mitigation package that really delves into their biography. Basically is like a this is your life for all of us older people. I never saw it when it was live, but I knew what it was. And I think we're going to be able to, by the time this month is out, we're going to have an AI agent making phone calls to clients and doing full interviews and preparing these packets and freeing up almost 1,000 hours of work a year. So it's amazing what you can do with AI in every little way. And it's really just about, who has the best imagination to come up with this stuff. But the real thing is now that you can create such local content at such incredible scale, I wonder how Google is going to gatekeep, because they want to keep that money flowing, and they don't want their algorithm to be gamed by AI content. So it's I don't know. I think I'm just going to wind up keep paying Google more and more money every year. It seems to be in those LSAs and in the maps and making sure I'm getting my reviews. And now I'm even thinking about re-upping my pay-per-click in certain areas, because LSAs are doing it, but not. I want to do more.
Right.
So it's
and it gets frustrating and scary because there are markets where it's not cost effective, and that's the scary part. So
yeah.
That's one of those limitations, and that's where, to me, and again, we'll talk about it on a future show, like is that limitation. Let me ask you a concluding question, which I'll throw out. Maybe somebody can comment. We have a phone system we elevated from the one you gave us a gazillion years ago. I really need something that is as good as it can be from the point of view of interfacing with AI. We've looked at Zoom and see that. What is on the short list for the best technology in voice over IP when it comes to extracting the data to be able to get different cadences from the conversations?
That it's funny. I actually just posed that question to my phone people, and I said, I want to be on the forefront of this. What are you hearing? And the response to me was, well, maybe you need to fly out and go to a conference with a whole bunch of vendors in this area that are
Yeah,
doing VoIP phone systems,
yeah,
and just walk the booths
yeah,
and
yeah,
see
yeah.
what's out there.
Yeah. I want the opposite. I want the Jay Ruane 6 month rule. I want to know who's using it and is getting it. I
Is
don't want
anybody in our space using it? I
you
mean,
know,
I would think that guys like
like
Morgan
the
and Morgan.
fireproof. No, fireproof. Mike Morris Group has been big on Zoom for a while. That's why I'm giving that a shot. We're using a legacy product, and my IT guy is going to get some third party AI to be able to extract it from it. And I'm like, I don't want to build software. I know that some
No.
of us love that. I want something that works. So yes, you could walk the trade show floor, but I'm not looking for what oh, that's a new one that nobody else is using. To
Well,
me,
what if you took like DeepSeek and plugged it into your? I mean, because I know the phone company you use. It's the same one I use. You have it sitting on a server. You
right.
could you could you could you could install DeepSeek on your server only, and really lock it down, so that way you're getting that data.
Right, but
Uh,
the question is,
and
is somebody else who's going to spoon feed it to me rather than, I mean, it's more expensive, but I would like to see something that is able to, I don't want to invent the wheel. Years ago, I got rid of my servers and went to the cloud because I knew my IT guy sucked. And I knew that when I got sued and he was on the stand and somebody said, could you imagine, would you imagine this is doable? And the jury would be like, oh yeah, this guy's incompetent, right? That was clear. So I was like, if Bezos with Amazon Web Services is getting hacked, yeah, so I'll deal with that. I'll bet on him over my guy. So here, I feel like it's the same but different. I don't want to start putting together a concoction of things. I don't want to have to worry about who's getting access to this and is client information getting out somewhere because I don't know how to set it up right. So I'm very willing to pay a modest premium not to have to put the tech stack together, but rather have somebody who's figured it out.
Well, I mean, that would be great. I think part of the problem is we're only about 18 months into this AI thing, and these corporations that run VoIP systems, they got access to it maybe 2 years ago, and so they are themselves still getting to the point where they're done testing. I think you'll see it over the next 6 months to 18 months.
Right. And so the
These
question
products hit the market.
is there somebody, like, again, you could walk it, but to me, that's you know, I want to know who the top three players are. So if anybody knows, I'm in the market.
Awesome. I mean, that would be fantastic. I mean, why don't you start another company, Seth, and you do it?
Oh no, that's the whole point. I don't I want this turnkey. I looked at there are people out there, but I was looking at something that would be in the sales world that would be able. And again, people are faster and already have it done.
Well,
Or
I mean, I would think that Salesforce would want to develop something that plugs into their database so that they could record calls and put sentiment and sentient
right.
over it, so that people could be tracked and people could be scored. I mean,
Right,
we're doing that with our intake
that's
calls.
the negative Big Brother thing, which is not true. But how about like just for professional development? It gives you the gamify it. You get off the phone and you're like, hey, how do I get a higher score? I mean, I got a few people in biz dev BluShark that they're eager beavers, and if they had a tool that could help improve them, these guys read a book a week on this stuff. So I have no
Yeah.
doubt that they would incorporate that in.
Awesome. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us this week on the Law Firm Blueprint. Of course, you can take us anywhere you want to go by following the Law Firm Blueprint podcast, available wherever you get your podcast. If you want to get in touch with us, please leave a comment below. We've got a lot of questions in this episode here, so please leave a comment below. Let us know what you're thinking about how much notice is necessary in an employment job. How do you deal with the gap on a resume? We want to use your comments and bring them into the conversation. So if you want to reach out to us, you can do it at the law firm blueprint at gmail.com and send us your comments, and that might be included in a future show. And finally, you can catch us live every Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, live on LinkedIn, Seth's new favorite home, as well as live in our Facebook group, the Law Firm Blueprint. Be sure to join it if you are a listener and not a member. But Seth, that's going to do it for us. Any other questions?
No, can't wait for
All right.
Baha Mar, and
Yeah.
see you guys soon.
We'll see you soon. I think you're in Baha Mar when I'm out in LA. I'm going to see if I can do some searches from hotel computers and see where I rank coming from a California IP. I
Sounds
always like to do that when I'm traveling. So, all right, folks, that's going to do it for us for now. Bye for now.